there's temperaments, and
Yeah.
it's coming to understand that a temperament gives you both strength and weakness in the same place. In the same way that being tough is a valuable asset.
Yeah.
So becomes your biggest weak spot because you're going to lean on it and it's going to become your default, and it's where you're going to get the most hurt because you're going to push away everyone if you're just a tough guy all the time. It's where you're going to hurt others in the way you were hurt. In the same way with a sensitive, right? I'm going to go with the opposite, the
Yeah.
opposite, right? Because I work with a lot of sensitive guys as well. And a lot of them struggle in seeing that their sensitivity is masculine.
Yeah.
Because there's the, well, you're weak, you're yada, yada, yada. But that's just a version of masculinity. Masculinity is being able to be sensitive and to be tough, nurturing and the op and destroy, like building it. You should have both the ability to create and destroy as a man, like in its full thing. And your version of that masculinity is going to live somewhere in that spectrum.
Hmm.
And it's coming to love your masculinity, right? And how it comes out on you. So the sensitive guy is more liable to get hurt, right? It is going to struggle with that being tough sometimes, but it gives them the ability to have great compassion, great understanding, the ability to draw out of the tough guy, right? Because if you a sensitive guy and a tough guy together, the sensitive guy is going to help the tough guy be more vulnerable and
Hmm.
to feel seen and heard when it's necessary. In the same way that the tough guy is going to help the sensitive guy protect themselves, be able to have resilience. It's it's about first trying to understand why that is the default mechanism by the way in which you communicate. And are there alternatives that could get you to the same place without having it's back to the values, right? Yes, using anger to get your son in the truck, using that kind of abruptness to get your son in the truck is effective.
Yeah.
Turning your relationship with him, and it's going to push him away from you in the long run. Same place where you feel like you're able to communicate while also nurturing that relationship, being seen
Hmm.
as a strong, tough leader, but not a tyrant.
Right. Right. Yeah. Authoritative without being authoritarian, that type of thing. Yeah.
Dishonesty, disrespectful, discrimination, detached, dismissive. That's it. I'm done. Relationships can be messy. Are you having trouble with your personal or professional relationship? Not to worry. As a relationship therapist and coach for over 25 years, I have a lot to share. And so will my guest experts. Let's get smarter in our business and personal lives so we can be our best selves. Now, let's get on with the show.
Hello. Welcome back to the Luella Young Show. And I am your host, Luella Young, in case you haven't figured that out yet. Today I have a fellow therapist and counselor with me. His name is Eric Zeitler. And he, as I said, is a licensed professional counselor, and he's based in Connecticut. And he also provides telehealth services in Florida, just in case you are a U.S. listener and you're interested in working with Eric after the show. He holds a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling from the Fairfield University and is the founder of Imago Dei Healing Institute, which focuses on Catholic integrative psychotherapy. Eric is actively involved with several professional organizations, including the Catholic Psychotherapy Association, and has presented on innovative trauma informed approaches within a faith integrated framework. He's also a husband and a father and brings both clinical depth and personal grounding to his work. So, welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Luella. I'm glad to be here.
All right. I guess, you know, okay, let's first start off with I noticed that you practice a lot of different types of therapy, and I I'm guessing some clients find you because of a certain type of therapy you do, while others maybe just reach out to you and ask you, what's the best type of therapy for me? So tell me a little bit about why you decided to get trainings in so many different types of therapies, and then maybe what you like using the most, or how does that all work?
Yeah. So I take a very integrative approach. So my not eclectic, integrative. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
And several of the therapy types I do. So I do image transformation therapy,
Wait, wait,
reintegrative,
wait. Slow down.
sorry,
Image.
transformation therapy, which
Okay.
is the one I use the most of all the like tool sets. Because
Okay.
all these different therapies I am trained in, I see them as tools in a box that I can pull from.
Yeah.
At the core, I'm at the core, I practice a very psychodynamic approach, and I practice a very person-centered. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to be very there's that humanistic and that psychodynamic like underpinnings of everything I'm doing. All these other therapies are tools that I lean into and I draw from
Okay.
to address problems that show up in the work I'm doing. Image transformation therapy is one, and that's probably the one I use the most.
So maybe could you explain it then, knowing that it's the one you use the most? Because as a therapist, I've never heard of it.
Most haven't. It was introduced to me by a colleague. So image transformation therapy, and it's the one I actually presented on at a conference. So
Mm-hmm.
it's I can say that I have at least enough experience and expertise to present on it. Image transformation therapy is what's known as a memory reconsolidation therapy, and it was developed by Dr. Robert Miller out of California. Um, his background was EMDR,
Yeah.
and so he's an EMDR therapist. And in the early 2000s, he was working with a lot of veterans coming back from Iraq because he
Mm.
was near the Marine Corps bases out there, and he was also working with a lot of children. And he found with EMDR that sometimes it was getting too close to the trauma
Mm.
actually function without overwhelming. So he
Mm-hmm.
started experimenting with some new ideas on how to approach that same idea. And from that, he developed um, his whole system, which is image transformation therapy. At its core, image transformation therapy is about micro exposure
Mm.
to whatever the trauma is, right? Or the addiction, because it's actually can be used for both addictions and traumas. And what you do is you get close enough to it so that the client can identify what the emotions, somatic experiences are, and a whole host of other things, and then you process them using visualization and breathing techniques.
Mm. Okay. So let's how about giving me an example of that? Because okay, so let's say I'm addicted to
Mhm.
food. I have a fair number of women, you know, will come to me saying, I have an eating disorder, a lot of binging. So no, knowing that, I mean, my experience, a lot of those addictive propensities come from some deeper trauma,
Mhm.
typically not feeling loved enough, quite often, not good enough, and therefore it's a bit of a self-soothing. But anyway, like, so how is that something that you could, okay, so tell me, how would that work?
Right. So I'm going to do my best. Uh,
Okay.
so Dr. Miller, I'm going to give a little bit of theory because it
Yep.
depends why this all works. Dr. Miller's core theory is a survival model of psychodynamics. All all behaviors ultimately are driven by their survival value, like the likelihood that you will survive as a result of them.
Mm,
So, and food is like, no duh. Like food is a survival need, but that's not actually it. What often happens is that food is associated with a feeling, a much more deeper core feeling. And those feelings end up oftentimes getting attached to trauma, as you pointed out. So underneath the addiction is a trauma. So you actually have to deal with both when you're doing the work. So let's say that it's binge eating. what you would do is you'd either go with the most recent binge episode, or you'd go with the first one that the person can remember. It's either, first, first, most powerful, or most recent. Like those are the three you look for. And you have the person go into the moment. What do you remember? What was going on? Have them really reactivate the memory of the binge. What are you feeling? And you ask them to get to the most intense moment in that. And it could be from I've done some work with binge eating with this. So it can be like I've had when I take the bite or when I buy it or something to that effect. And then I start going through a list of categories. And these are just think of them like these are feeling states. So it'll be like being a winner, being accepted, being safe. And those are kind of like broad ideas. And the fourth is like excitement, being alive. And usually one of those the person just instinctively will be like that. They'll know instantly when it's said. And then what we actually do is we process that feeling out of the memory. And the technique specifically is you hold the memory like an image, like a picture frame, right? See it filled with the color, and the color is representation of that feeling present in the image. Drain it out. Once it's drained out, destroy the image, recreate it. What changed? Oftentimes, parts of the image are missing now. Sometimes and the goal is for there to be some amount of detachment.
Yeah.
Right? The image loses its power, loses its allure. And that feeling that they had, that feeling state. So it could be, I felt loved, or like when I ate, it's that feeling of loved or accepted or a winner or feminine or masculine or safe. Once you've processed the addictive image, you go to the trauma and you ask, when is there a time in your past that you kind of go with free association. First thing that comes to your mind where you felt not that, where you felt the opposite or you lack that. Almost without fail, it's like they instantly pops in their mind a memory from their past that has some elements of trauma in it, childhood neglect, some abuse, what have you. And then we process that with a different set of tools from the same toolbox. And usually when we go back after we've processed the trauma, we go back to the addiction. When they re-engage it, it's lost its allure, it's lost its taste. And then we process that one last time by having them fully destroy it. What ends up happening then is at least I, and it's how the book, how we're taught, we don't tell them to avoid engaging in the behavior, because what should happen is when they go to engage it, what they used to get out of it is no longer there.
Right. Or maybe an opportunity to practice it as well, or no. Okay.
So what's happened is when they go to do it, the what they're looking for, right, in the addiction is not present because they're not reactivating like their brain's not going to reactivate those same places, not going to get the same pleasure. There'll be this dissatisfaction. And as time goes on, that loses its power and it goes away naturally.
Okay.
And because whatever the moment in which the behavior began was a peak moment, a very strong sense of this feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's basically being like bringing out an awareness, more of an awareness into the behavior, having them in the present, because like a lot of this is otherwise mindlessness, right? I mean, they're doing a behavior and they have really no idea why they're doing it, sort of thing. Okay.
And a disconnected, disassociative state oftentimes with addiction.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's that. And then what would be like the second most, popular tool that you choose?
Yeah. So image transformation therapy, reintegrative therapy, flash technique, those are all memory consolidation tools.
Okay.
They're different ways to approach it. Reintegrative therapy uses its own set of tools, but also integrates. And then flash technique is a variation of EMDR. It's very effective. That's one half of the tool set. I use those very much for past processing of things.
Yeah.
I then will focus on present and future, and I do that using acceptance and commitment therapy.
What was that one?
Acceptance and commitment therapy.
Okay.
So it's Dr. Stephen Hayes. It's a CBT approach.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think it's third wave CBT.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. So
No.
so it's cognitive behavioral, and the core act that I use, because I don't use the whole system. I really try to focus on two elements, which are values and committed action.
Mm.
So identifying a client's values, what is important to them, and that can change over the course of a therapy. The work I do, like some things that they originally held in the beginning, may shift
Mm.
later, but that's fine. What is important to them? What are they driven towards? The people, places, and things, ideas, beliefs, and then their actions in relation to that. I take a very actions are neutral because every action you take is valid in the context. It may not be an action
Mm.
that in the long term you're happy with, but in the moment, it was an action that was absolutely valid to make in that decision, in that moment. And by choosing it, you got relief in some way. There's a reason you made that choice. My goal is to help you identify what your values are, what the actions you're making are, and to identify which actions are going to bring you closer to those values. Try and choose those 51% of the time because
Yeah.
if you choose something 51% of the time, you're choosing it more often than not. Over time, you're going to be moving closer to what you want.
Yeah. Okay. So again, kind of self-awareness again regarding the values and see that type of therapy I'm much more comfortable with. It just like, and I think it's because I know for myself that's what changes me. That's something that might change. Like it's very important to me to have certain standards in my life and virtues and values. So I guess it's interesting, right? I guess you sort of like, I'm guessing when a client, okay, first of all, I find sometimes when I've gone on different therapy sites and even Psychology Today, perhaps, when you're trying to choose a therapist, like sometimes they'll have all these therapies listed. And personally, I find that must be a little bit overwhelming to a client. It's sort of like, CBT, DBT, image transfer, it's like well, like what? It's sort of I have no clue. All I know is like I'm suffering and I need help. So what do you typically see? Do you find clients seek you out because of these different therapies or they just come in and they trust you to figure out like do you do some sort of type of assessment when you see them that you determine, hey, you know what, I think this is going to be the best tool for you?
Yeah. So the 90, I'd say 96% almost of my clients are Catholic. The
Okay.
primary reason why they seek me out is because of how heavily on the front of all my stuff is Catholic integration.
Yeah.
The idea of how do I integrate Catholic anthropology teachings, the whole system within psychotherapy? How does the faith and the science marry?
Meat.
And at its core is those values. I'm going to come back to the values because that's why I use ACT is most of the clients that come to see me do so because they're afraid on some level that their values will not be respected. And then I don't, and there's a part, and I'll be honest, part of the reason why I even went down the path I did is because my someone very close to me told me when I was in grad school that the last time they had tried therapy, which was they'd done it for grief, it was for grief work. The therapist did not respect their faith
Yeah,
and it ruined the process and they refused to ever go back.
totally. I've heard the same. Yeah.
And I was like, that to me shocked me because I was like, how could you have all therapists should, and like I said, I do work with clients who are not Catholic and I'm able to completely engage them on their values where they're at. And I'm not pushing mine.
Right.
I recognized that there was something missing. And I started finding other like clinicians like myself who had the same mentality. So that's where the Catholic Psychotherapy Association is a big part of what I'm involved in. So
Which I've never heard of before, but I need to look into because like I'm wondering if is that just American or is it's
we're international. We're very
national.
international. So we're small.
Okay.
Most of the membership is in the United States. We do have international members.
Okay.
Great organization. It's the entire focus is on trying to forward the question to find the answers to the question, what is Catholic integrated psychotherapy? What is that?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
great organization. So most of the work I do is with Catholics, and it's on issues. Most of the time, it's issues that are very near and dear to their hearts: marriage, virtue, variety of them.
Mhm.
Actually, deep questions of faith. I don't try to. I try to not get into spiritual direction just to clarify.
Yeah, yeah.
I try to. There's always going to be some amount,
Hmm.
but I'm not telling them what they should do. I am
Right.
encouraging, exploring with them their options and what they would.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but there are always questions of faith that come up, like how could this be,
Yeah.
and explore that and their own struggles sometimes. One an issue I see often is someone will have a really good relationship with Jesus, the Son, and has serious still issues with the Father.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at the rest of their life story, and you're like, oh, I can see
Yeah.
why your father issues that are there.
Right.
So
Or even the idea of adoring Mary, that's another. Yeah. It's interesting. And then, like, you said something like just before we recorded, and I was telling you, hey, if we say something, we need to edit out, no problem. And you're just like, yeah, I just trust the process. And to me, like, that's a big basis of what I try to, do in my own practice as well. It's sort of because I feel like we we it's one of the biggest things, like, most of my clients will lack, right? I mean, it's sort of if it was that easy, right? If they would come in and we just go, hey, trust the process. Like, I mean, you say you're Catholic, like, come on, like, show up, you need to trust God, and see you next session. Like, if only it would be that easy.
yeah,
But I mean, I often share with them the surrender novena, and just, like, just in case you forgot, like, here it is again, and it's practicing. It's just faith is a practice. We need to revisit it over and over again. And, it just seems like anything that's like, we just don't want risk in our lives, right? Like, I feel, and I think part of that is because the world seems to have gone crazy. And, we want to really, just like our investments, right? We want to really limit the risk because everything else in my life is going crazy. It's chaotic. So let's just sort of like, yeah, they're walking on pins and needles.
which and I want to just jump. I want to jump on something you said there and kind of push it forward. There's an irony in that the key, from my perspective, most of the time, the key to what needs to happen in order for the client, whatever the client's issue to resolve, requires them to take the risk, to go against the fear and walk through it.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes it's not actually that much they have to do, but getting to the place where they're comfortable doing that is the actual fight itself.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's basically healing, in a nutshell. Like, it's just doing what seems to make zero sense. Like, even myself, I've really deepened my faith in the last year. And I try to attend daily mass when I can. And I used to think of it as, well, I can't give up like an hour of my day for this, like, I'm working, like, I'm working. And in order to do well in my work, I need to be at my desk working. And then I just, one day it was like, well, no, that's not the way God works. It's not a zero sum game. It's not like if I give away an hour, I'm gonna, my work's gonna suffer from that. It's that's not the way it works. Like, and yeah, no, it's just like, it's funny how those little beams of light sort of come through, as we grow and learn and explore our faith. So the question that you this organization the Catholic Psychotherapy Association asks is, how do we do it? How could you answer that like now for clients? Because as you with you, I'm sure, they'll send an email and they'll say, yes, I want to seek therapy, but I do want you to value, to honor my faith, but not maybe in an ideological way. It's in the terms of, well, if you're Catholic, you need to just trust God. And like I think they're looking for something like, how do you how do you do it? Not to be a spiritual director, but to help my healing under the umbrella of having a strong faith. You know what I'm getting at? Like it's like how well let me just start by maybe I'll explain how I would approach that. I would say, I think I would just treat every individual that comes into my room the same way. But if I hear something in their voice like this, this yearning to use their faith more rather than some sort of process, like I'll sort of jump on that, in terms of bringing more peace into their life, because that's essentially why I want God in my life is for peace. And I think that's what everybody's really craving for. They might not articulate that when they come into their office, but it's really a sense of peace, a sense of calm, and you can only get that through trust and and belief. So yeah.
I where I would start, I think it's I gotta because we could spend 3 hours
Yeah,
trying
I
to
know, I know.
find this out, and I want to try and pick the one area in which I see in the work I do the most consistent problem,
Hmm.
and it's not on y- it's not on the individual's relationship with God in the positive. It's on their with God in the places that they see in the negative, where they feel there is a barrier. It's trust is the trust is a positive action. So the negative that gets in the way of it is anxiety, fear.
Hmm.
Where are the fears? Where are they coming from? Where do they exist? Let's address those. And from an integrative standpoint, it's not about us spending the time in prayer together.
No.
Not that that's not helpful, but that's not why you're here.
No, exactly.
It's what is getting in the way of you going to prayer? What is getting in the way of you? What are you afraid's not going to happen? Where do you feel like you are not loved still? It's in those places that the work needs to happen. Because if we can address the places in which you don't feel loved, period, in some
Hmm.
way, because if you can't feel love from others, you're not going to be able to feel love from God. Conversation. If you can't understand that experience, or if you have with trauma, a lot of the time what I see is how could this have been allowed to happen to me? Or because
Yeah.
that pain is intense, I can't perceive a world in which there could not be that.
Hmm.
And oftentimes the trauma is actually, and this, I had a conversation recently on this topic about trauma with an individual who gave me there is no, is that the whole trauma thing is BS and there's no such thing. It's all made up, or unless it was something really big, it doesn't matter, right? That kind of,
Oh, like a really tough guy sort of thing.
um, and I looked at him and I went, "Do you go to the gym?" And he goes, "I'm like, okay. When you go to the gym and you lift a weight, what are you doing?" "Well, I'm lifting weight." "No, no, you're traumatizing your muscles,
Hmm.
tearing them.
Hmm.
If you go every single day and you tear them and tear them and tear them, what's going to happen?" "Well, my muscles I'm gonna be sore. I'm gonna be hurting." I'm like, "Are you gonna get stronger?" "Well, no, I'm actually gonna get weaker." I'm like, "Oh, what do you have to do in order for your muscles to grow and to get stronger?" "We'll have to do recovery." I'm like, "That's what therapy is recovery."
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
all trauma therapy is recovery work.
Hmm.
You just haven't stopped for the 2 seconds it takes to allow your body to recover because the world doesn't give you the chance. And the recovery process for a psychological thing is not the same as for a physical thing always. It's not just taking some time.
Right, right, right. Yeah. No, that's great. That's a great analogy. I think That's good. Like I know, like it's so cliche to say you're everybody's problem is that they don't feel like they're enough.
Mhm.
Like I mean, I was trained in clinical hypnotherapy, and it was with a therapist from London, the UK, Marissa Peer, and that was like the basis of. She said is all everyone's troubles is like they just don't feel like they're enough. And, in a secular way, it's true. Like, but it wouldn't work with everybody to say, well, you are loved and you are loved by God. So, get over it sort of thing. Like, I mean, it just doesn't work like that. But, you said in order, how did you say that? In order to experience God's love, you have to love others.
You have to be able to have experienced love from others and that true.
Yeah, yeah, to even know what love is. You're right. Like so you're right. So childhood formation, for example, that's why that sort of trauma is just so deep. And we've seen that in clinical trials with with the monkey experiment, right? That one where it's they gave them whatever, a metal sort of
Oh,
bottle.
it was wasn't it like a metal, a fate, like it was a metal mother, wasn't it?
Right, right. Yeah, there was no warmth, there was nothing there, and so they couldn't do the attachment. Yeah, that shows on a very primal basis the need for love of a parent. So you're right, it's really hard to bridge that to the love of God if you don't have even that base feeling of what is love. But for most of us, like I mean, you know, for most of us, we would have received a love from a grandparent or a teacher that cares or something like that, right? So we make that bridge and then we connect that to, like even in the worst sort of situations, if your parents did a completely horrible job, that there is still the love of the father for you because he created you and you're your own special snowflake and all that stuff, right? Like, but it's, I understand what you're saying, like for deep trauma, like you can't even, they can't even associate with that because they've never felt it. Now, like that's a tough case, right? Like that's a really tough case. And I think those are the people that we see in jails and, that can seem to never reform, etc., without the grace of God intervening for them.
One of one's external world is a representation of their internal world. So if you look at how somebody, like what someone's environment, the environment they create around themselves, better understand the environment that's going on within themselves. Right? There's that organization that has to occur. Case in point, my bookshelf is chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I have severe ADHD, and my representation is I know where all the books are
Right.
for them,
Yeah.
but within an individual that is severely wounded, that tough guy,
Yeah.
why is he so tough? Because that's the
Mm-hmm.
version of the world he's ever been given. Yet,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if you break through that, you can show them that there's another side to them, a side that can be strong, can be tough in a different way, not in
Mm-hmm.
this fake way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And what would that different way be?
That they will be tough not because they're having to force it, but because they've lived it. Toughness is not the inability to allow oneself to be vulnerable comes from a fear of it. And once you're no longer afraid of being vulnerable, you're much stronger and you have an authentic strength. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to use violence to protect yourself.
Right. Yeah. 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 That brings up a whole different. Okay. I want to ask you two questions. The last one I'll leave to the end, and it has to do with our own vulnerabilities as a therapist. Like I'm going to ask you, what's the thing that you struggle with the most being a therapist? I want to remind me to make sure I ask you that at the end because I know what mine is. And but the other one, since you brought up like, the tough guy, um, and I get a lot of those tough guys, but I also get a lot of sensitive men in my office. which, it's a breath of fresh air because it sometimes reminds me, I can't stereotype men like that. Like, I can't think that all men have this black and white thinking, very formulaic, like if it's not black, then it's white and there's no gray. Now, granted, I think that's part of a man's biology to be more like that. But okay, so this is the fellow I have right now, and it's kind of interesting. I'll give the short example of why the couple came in, and she gave an example of why she's so frustrated with him. It's because, okay, first of all, a very, very angry man. Like he gets very, very angry with her, with the kids. He can't control his anger. He needs anger management, whatever. And the example she gave is sort of their child was playing and the child cut his ear. And he's about an 8-year-old child and the ear's bleeding. And the father's like, okay, you need to get into the truck and you need to go into the truck now. And I think he was very abrupt with the boy, and the boy kind of circled back to his mom and was clinging to his mom. But then they finally all got in the truck, and he wanted to go right straight to emergency. And the mom was like, "Well, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe we should just take another look at it at home. Maybe we can just use glue. We don't need stitches." And he became very angry in the truck on the way there. He was starting to yell at the boy and yell at her. And so when I unpacked that a little bit with him, I said, why is it that you started to yell at your son, who is injured? And I said, like, because I said, like, what were you saying to him? It's like, and he kind of described, well, his wife was sort of like talking over him and trying to talk to the boy, and he was crying loud and he didn't want to go. And he says, I said, well, what'd you tell him? He goes, well, you have to go. And and I said, well, don't you think that maybe he was scared? Like he was probably terrified, the little guy. What is happening? What do you mean by stitches? Like what is and so I was asking him, did you have any kind of compassion that you could have kind of like shared with your little guy? And he goes like, no. Like he says he needs to get his ear stitched and it is probably going to hurt. So like in his mind, it was like, why would I sugarcoat that? Like this is reality. You're gonna go to a hospital and it's gonna hurt. They're gonna probably have to clean it out some way. And like so in his mind, like all this other like emotional stuff that was going on in the truck was just annoying him. It was just like, this is reality. This is truth. Like, you know. And so obviously, like I know his background a little bit, and his dad was like tough, right? Like no emotions or whatever. Very, very hard on him. Very hard. Physical, everything, right? So now this man is formed like this. And you think as a therapist, okay, how do I unform him? How do I get to have him start to practice more empathy and feelings? And he was just getting upset with his wife because his wife was all like nurturing, and so I don't know. um I'm not sure why I brought that up, but it's because you were talking about the tough guy and how he has to become more vulnerable and go see, I mean, go back to the past and I guess try to experience his hurt when he was a little boy with his dad, right?
Ultimately, yes. But the first bridge you got to cross, right, is to try and understand why his default response is that.
The anger.
Why is the anger the default?
Yes.
How he communicates. And
Mm-hmm.
my first instincts, or my first instinct when I heard that, is either that's how he was communicated to primarily. So that's how he
Mm-hmm.
learned, right? So it's, you learn from your first attachment figures how man and woman are
Yeah.
each other. But two, the other way it could be seen is the only way in which he ever got heard, right? The only way in which he could be heard by people was to use that form,
Yeah.
And that's a learned pattern. That's where I would start exploring with him is the why is this the mechanism by which you're able to, what does that make you feel like you're heard? Are you
Hmm.
able to communicate? Where is that coming from? And you're going to deal with temperament. There's temperaments, and
Yeah.
it's coming to understand that a temperament gives you both strength and weakness in the same place. In the same way that being tough is a valuable asset.
Yeah.
So becomes your biggest weak spot because you're going to lean on it and it's going to become your default and it's where you're going to get the most hurt because you're going to push away everyone if you're just a tough guy all the time. It's where you're going to hurt others in the way you were hurt. In the same way with a sensitive, right? I'm going to go with the opposite,
Yeah.
the opposite, right? Because I work with a lot of sensitive guys as well. And a lot of them struggle in seeing that their sensitivity is masculine
Yeah.
because there's the, well, you're weak, you're yada yada yada, but that's just a version of masculinity. Masculinity is being able to be sensitive and to be tough,
Mm.
nurturing and the op and destroy, like building it. You should have both the ability to create and destroy as a man, like in its full thing. And your version of that masculinity is going to live somewhere in that spectrum,
Hmm.
and it's coming to love your masculinity, right? And how it comes out in you. So the sensitive guy is more liable to get hurt, right? It is going to struggle with that being tough sometimes, but it gives them the ability to have great compassion, great understanding, the ability to draw out of the tough guy, right? Because if you a sensitive guy and a tough guy together, the sensitive guy is going to help the tough guy be more vulnerable and
Hmm.
to feel seen and heard when it's necessary. In the same way that the tough guy is going to help the sensitive guy protect themselves, be able to have resilience. In the case you were just sharing with me, it's it's about first trying to understand why that is the default mechanism by the way in which you communicate. And are there alternatives that could get you to the same place without having it's back to the values, right? Yes, using anger to get your son in the truck, using that kind of abruptness to get your son in the truck is effective.
Yeah.
Turning your relationship with him. And it's going to push him away from you in the long run. Same place where you feel like you're able to communicate while also nurturing that relationship, being
Hmm.
seen as a strong, tough leader, but not a tyrant.
Right. Right. Yeah. Authoritative without being authoritarian, that type of thing. Yeah. Yeah. And, I empathize with him somewhat as well because I can see that, as a man, and maybe you can correct me, like, I mean, his nature is to protect his family, right? And he wanted efficiency there. He didn't want to diddle daddle. He didn't want to like stand outside the truck and go down on one knee and console him and sort of like, no, no, we need to get in the truck and we need to get in the truck right now. And in some way he was trying to lead his family to do what's good. But I guess his patience, was running very thin when he's hearing his wife, talking to the child, and it's just sort of like, so I mean, I just talked to him about, the just using a different tone of voice that, in that moment and taking some deep breaths and sort of like recalibrating himself would have went a long, long way. And he would have been able to achieve both of his goals of getting to the hospital on time and not diddle daddling about, can we do this ourselves at home with glue? Let's go to the experts and just let his wife sort of take care of the nurturing maybe in the truck, but just like compose himself, right? Like that self-regulation of emotions. I
Mhm.
think this is like what you said. He went to the default. He became a young boy again who was being, yelled at or directed at. And his instant thing was anger. It's like, I can't talk, and probably compressed all his feelings as a young boy. Um, and that doesn't work, you know.
I know we're running out of time.
Yes.
But I want to, there's something you said there, I think that's the one part of the stuff I do that I didn't talk about.
Okay. What was it?
Breathing.
Breathing. Yeah.
At one of the most interesting things and I'm working on some research on this right now. I don't want to talk about it till it's a little bit further along, but a thing I discovered very early on is when you are anxious, right? Because that's what I'm in that situation that you're describing. That's an anxiety producing situation.
Oh, yeah.
Son is bleeding from the ear. I am not capable of solving it. I need to take it to someone that can solve it. And there's a whole bunch of extra things coming into the room that I'm not comfortable with. That anxiety produces that you unconsciously, before you're aware it's happening, your heart rate and your breathing are increasing, fight or flight. That is going to change how you're perceiving and reacting to a situation because you're losing control.
Mm-hmm.
The number one tool for counteracting that is breathing because your the low I'm going to butcher the name of this
Mm-hmm.
locus coeruleus neuroepinephrine system, which is a portion of your brain, is directly involved in regulating all this stuff. Your breathing can regulate in reverse. So in the same way that that automatic response of fear
Mm-hmm.
drives you to take all these actions because it's going to go to what is the most expedient and most common tool you use. If you can stop, know that you're going into that place and take 30 seconds to slow down your breathing and get into a nice steady rhythm.
Yeah.
What will happen, and while you're breathing, don't think about the thing, which is hard, but you focus on the
Yeah.
breathing. When you go back to think about it, you've actually lowered your your system. You're going to perceive it differently and
Totally.
see it in a completely different way. And I use another tool set for this particular work because before I can do even a lot of things, the first thing we have to do is learn regulation. Before you can take the action you want to take, you need to learn to recognize that it's a moment. You got to breathe so you can identify the correct action you want to take.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Just want to mention that before.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And like that's why like I love this guy in many ways because it's not his fault. It's just like it was taught to him that's how you react. And but like another part of it too was like I think I asked him point blankly, I said, do you think that was the right thing to say to your child like in that time? And he was like, yeah. And I said, oh, he goes, because it's the truth. It is gonna hurt. And it is like, he was just kind of completely lacking that whole, but like sometimes the truth is not the, the best, like thing to say in that moment, right? Like he didn't see anything wrong with it. It's like, well, no, it's the truth. And it sort of just brings up that, tough it up, buttercup, like suck it up. Like, this is reality. And at the same, like, and that's why, I mean, in many ways, I love this guy because in other ways, I think part of the reason why so many people are suffering in this world right now is that they're they're living through their emotions, which can change dramatically, each hour of the day. It's like, well, I'm just feeling emotionally drained right now. I don't think I can go into work. Suck it up, buttercup. Like you're committed to your job. Like get in the car and go. Like I just feel like everybody's like there's no, as you know, like objective truth anymore. It's sort of like, well, this is how I feel.
Mm.
Okay. Well, that's not how reality works.
Can I add one thing to
Yes.
he wasn't giving the full truth because it's going to hurt is the truth, but it's not the complete truth.
Mm.
The complete truth is it's going to hurt, but you're going to be okay.
That's exactly what I said to him. Yeah. Yeah.
Second component is what's missing because there's the compassion.
Exactly.
It's the acknowledgement that it's going to hurt because acknowledging it's going to hurt is compassion.
Right.
Following up with, but you're going to be okay, and I'm here
Yeah.
with you. Like that's the relation. That's how the tough guy is relational. That's how
E-
the tough guy is nurturing.
Exactly. Perfect. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because when we think of like my Jesus overturning the tables at the temple. I mean, I love that because I mean, men can relate to that, right? It's just,
My favorite part of that story that no one talks about is he wove, and that whip
yeah,
takes time. He sat there for a bit. That
yeah,
wasn't like impulsive rage.
right.
There was time for people to see it coming.
Yeah.
There's that element to the gospels and to even just scripture in general that people forget is there's a lot of context you have to take a step back and go, what else is going on here that's not being written about?
Right. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I also will use I use the passion a lot. Even Christ fell down 3 times, as have you. You are going to fall on this journey, but every time he gets up, he carries a cross. And one of those times, someone helps him. We are very, very quick to want to be so, and there's nothing wrong with being strong and independent. Like, it's very important that you can stand on your own 2 feet, but it's also very important to know when you need to lean on someone else for help,
Mm,
carry the burden that is life.
mm-hmm.
And that's the thing I try to teach to a lot of the guys I work with is you need to learn how to lean on people and accept that you're going to need help and that it's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to use that. Like, you know, the part about the passion, carrying your cross and accepting help. That's wonderful. I know you're strict on time. Can you name something that you struggle with as a therapist that you feel like you need to work on?
Oh yeah,
What's the
tons.
one what's the one thing that comes to mind? Because everybody thinks like we got everything together here, right? Like you and I.
No, absolutely not. That first thing is no, I am human. It's I've one of the areas I can the one place I think that as a therapist I struggle with that I still have to continue to work on is being able to, and it's the thing being okay not having the answer. There's a pressure in this to have the solution, to know the answer, to have the thing to say, and the reality is that you're not because you're human. To be able to be okay with that is tough. That requires humility. I as a Catholic, right, as that being like the core of my value set and the core of my identity and why I do all this work I do. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for God. Like
Yeah.
I give all credit. I have no talent of myself. I have the effort I put in.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is constantly showing me where my weak spots are, opportunities to work through that process. That's a good thing, and that's the place. I hope that does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, it's wonderful and I can completely relate to that. And yeah, so me, it's basically the kind of a spin-off of what you're saying. It's sort of like, you know, to try to, it's that fine line between listening enough and speaking, or, you know, because like you say, sometimes you don't have the answer. So you have to be okay with just listening and not maybe being able to give them an answer or reply, which is, like you say, very humbling because they're coming to you, they're asking for help. That and like I just feel like sometimes I'm a little bit more of the tough one myself, and maybe that gives you insight to my upbringing. It's like, you know, so because when they're talking about their feelings and it being hard and, you know, all they wanted me to do is validate them, like I just find myself saying, you know, like, suck it up, buttercup, you know, like, you know, but not in that way, right? It's sort of like we need to do the tough things. And that's sometimes I feel like, oh, you know, I think I was too hard on that client, or it's just like maybe I shouldn't have said that, or it's just sort of like, but yeah, it's that fine line I find, you know, because you don't want to hurt them, but at the same time you want to say the truth.
I think if there's one thing, and this last, I want to off that last
Yeah.
thing, the you can take all of the books, all the techniques, all the theory, you can throw that all out. There's one core principle that ultimately the client is coming to you for, which is objective perspective, right? You don't have to live with their family. You don't have to live with who you're not them.
Right.
There is no aside from wanting them to get help and to do your job, you don't have the baggage of all the
Yeah.
social elements of being human and being them. And you are the place where they can actually maybe for once hear the truth about something that everyone else is not willing to tell them, or they're not willing to tell themselves. And I think that's the most important thing that we are able to provide. And it sucks sometimes to have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. I'm glad you agree. Well, I know I'm pushing you on your time, and this was so fun. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely. Anytime. You can just send me an email and I'd love to come back on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, because we really didn't talk a lot about how to integrate, Catholic faith into this, but yeah, no, a lot of fun, and yeah, so we'll do part two another time. Okay, Eric, have a great day, and everyone else, take care, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode. Remember that you can watch the full episode on YouTube, where I plan to hang out the most. Your feedback and suggestions for future guests are incredibly valuable to me, so please don't hesitate to post a comment. You are an integral part of this journey.